Okay, let's dive right in. Big news out of South Texas yesterday, May 3rd.
Right. The residents of Boca Chica Village, well, they voted. Overwhelmingly, too.
Yeah, 212 for, only 6 against, to incorporate as Starbase, Texas.
And Elon Musk was quick to celebrate on X, wasn't he? Something like, Starbase, Texas is now a real city.
Exactly. But it's not just the name, is it? The elected officials are interesting.
Very. All unopposed, and all with, let's say, strong SpaceX connections.
You've got Robert Bobby Peden as mayor. He's SpaceX's VP of Texas Test and Launch Operations.
And the city commissioners. Jordan Buss, the environmental health and safety site manager for Starbase.
And Jenna Pichelka, who's a resident there,
Yeah.
and related to SpaceX's VP of Spacecraft Engineering. So, I mean, it's pretty clear who's running the show.
It really centers the city squarely around the SpaceX facility.
Yeah.
Their stated reason, according to Catherine Luters, the Starbase general manager,
Uh-huh.
is to grow Starbase as a community, make building amenities easier, create a world-class place to live and work.
Which means, practically speaking, the new city now controls its own zoning, taxation, development plans.
And that's crucial, isn't it? Especially if SpaceX wants to ramp up launches like they say they do.
Yeah.
Going from 5 to, 25 a year?
Yeah, that requires major infrastructure changes.
Precisely. But it also brings up concerns. What about public beach access? The environment.
And public oversight, right, when the entire city council is essentially SpaceX management, or closely tied.
There's definitely a worry it could become, well, a company town. SpaceX having almost complete control.
It makes you wonder, could this set a precedent? Other big tech companies creating their own cities.
It's a possibility. And we shouldn't forget how vital Starbase is for SpaceX. It's the main Starship hub, key for NASA, Department of Defense contracts, Mars missions even.
Big stuff.
Uh-huh.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Also on May 3rd, news from Mexico.
Yes, President Claudia Sheinbaum publicly pushed back against a proposal from President Trump.
The one about sending U.S. troops into Mexico to fight drug cartels?
That's the one. It came after a Wall Street Journal piece about a apparently tense phone call they had last month.
So the report said Trump asked how the U.S. could help with drug trafficking and basically suggested deploying U.S. troops.
And Scheinbaum's response was, well, pretty direct.
Extremely firm. She said, "We will never accept the presence of the United States Army in our territory." And she really emphasized sovereignty.
Sovereignty is not for sale. Sovereignty is loved and defended. Mexico's territory is inviolable. Very strong words.
Has the White House commented on her version of the call?
Not directly on her account as of the latest reports, but James Hewitt from the National Security Council did put out a statement.
What did it say?
Basically that Trump has worked closely with Mexico for a secure border, the most secure southwest border in history, and that the U.S. is ready to assist and expand cooperation against foreign terrorist organizations, or FTOs.
So, kind of sidestepping the troop deployment issue directly.
Seems like it. Steinbaum, for her part, did say she's willing to increase information sharing.
But she also pushed back, right? Urged Trump to deal with weapons flowing south across the border.
Exactly. So while there's been cooperation on things like immigration and trade for months, this stance on troops, it definitely signals a potential clash.
Especially given Trump's past criticisms about fentanyl and his, history of threatening tariffs.
And don't forget, there has been an increased U.S. military presence near the border since Trump's order back in January.
Right, to help stem migration. More troops, more equipment, surveillance flights.
Yeah, and U.S. Northern Command has apparently been seeking more authority for U.S. Special Forces to work with Mexican forces against the cartels. Plus, Trump designated several cartels and gangs as FTOs back in February.
It's interesting because Sheinbaum had kind of earned this reputation as a Trump whisperer, managing to avoid those blanket tariffs he threatened before.
Well, Mexico still faces some levies, but yeah, she navigated it. This public rejection feels like a shift, though, a potentially significant one.
Okay, let's move to something completely different. An AI image.
Ugh. Ah, yes, the Pope image. Donald Trump shared an AI-generated picture of himself, dressed as the Pope, on Truth Social.
And the White House reposted it too, apparently.
The timing was notable. Just before the papal conclave started, or was set to start, May 7th, to elect the successor to Pope Francis.
Who passed away on Easter Monday. Yeah, the timing definitely raised eyebrows.
And sparked immediate backlash. Some Catholics, and others too, found it offensive, disrespectful, especially during a mourning period.
The New York State Catholic Conference called it out, saying it wasn't clever or funny, and stressed the solemnity of the conclave.
Others chimed in too. Michael Steele, former RNC chair, called it unserious. Matteo Renzi, former Italian premier, said it offends believers and insults institutions.
Were there defenders?
Oh, yes. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt defended it. She pointed out Trump flew to Italy for Pope Francis's funeral and called him a staunch champion for Catholics and religious liberty.
And VP J.D. Vance.
His take was a bit different, something like he's fine with people telling jokes and not fine with people starting stupid wars.
Huh. And Lindsey Graham seemed to sort of lean into the joke, showing support for Trump as head of the Catholic Church on X.
Yeah, that was his reaction. The Vatican itself, their spokesman declined to comment officially.
Though the image was apparently discussed at their daily briefing about the conclave.
It was. Unsurprisingly, some critics have labeled it pathological megalomania. It certainly throws a spotlight on, the weird intersection of AI, politics, and deeply held symbols.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about something much more practical, affecting potentially millions of travelers. The real ID deadline.
Right, this is important. May 7th, 2025, that's tomorrow, depending on when you're listening.
So starting then, every air traveler 18 and older needs a real ID-compliant driver's license or ID card, or another acceptable form of ID, just to board a commercial flight in the U.S.
This all comes from the Real ID Act, passed way back in 2005. It was a recommendation from the 9/11 Commission.
The idea being to set minimum security standards for state-issued IDs.
Exactly. Now, if you don't have a Real ID license, there are alternatives.
Like a U.S. passport or passport card.
Yep. Or DHS, Trusted Traveler Cards. Global Entry, Nexus, Sentry, Fast. Military IDs work too. And some states issue enhanced driver's licenses, EDLs. Those are also okay.
But if you show up at TSA with just a standard, non-compliant driver's license after May 7th,
you might not get through security. Simple as that. Kids under 18 don't need to worry about this for domestic travel, though.
how do you know if your current ID is compliant?
Look for a star, usually in the upper part of the car. It might be gold, black, or holographic, depending on the state.
And if there's no star?
Then, when you renew it, it will likely say, not for federal identification. You'll need one of those other accepted federal IDs to fly or get into secure federal buildings.
What do you typically need to get a real ID? It's more involved than a standard renewal, right?
Generally, yes. You usually need proof of identity, like an original birth certificate or passport, prove your social security number, the card, maybe a W-2, and 2 documents proving you live in that state.
Utility bills, bank statements, rental agreements, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Check with your specific state DMV, though. The requirements can vary slightly.
This whole thing hasn't been without controversy, has it?
Not at all. There were, and still are, privacy concerns. Worries about it becoming a national ID card, consolidating personal info, potential for government tracking, or being a target for identity theft.
Plus the cost for states to implement it and the hassle for individuals, potentially higher fees, longer lines at the DMV.
Definitely. Some states resisted initially because of those privacy and database requirements, and even now compliance levels vary a lot.
Yeah, I saw some figures from April, like New Jersey was only at 17%, Pennsylvania 26%. Others, like Colorado and Florida, were near 100%. California was around 55%.
So it's really a mixed bag across the country. DMVs have been seeing a huge surge in demand.
I bet. Some are extending hours, holding special Saturday events just for real ID, like New Hampshire did just yesterday.
Right. So the advice is clear. If you plan to fly domestically soon, check your ID now. Check your state DMV website and the TSA website for all the details. Don't wait until you're at the airport.
Sound advice. Okay, finally tonight, a really tragic story out of Ohio.
Yes, unfortunately. Rodney Hinton Jr. has been charged with aggravated murder.
The victim was a Hamilton County Sheriff's deputy.
That's right. The incident happened Friday, May 2nd, and the context is just devastating.
It happened the day after Hinton's own son, 18-year-old Ryan Hinton, was fatally shot by a Cincinnati police officer.
Yeah. The deputy, who hasn't been named in reports yet, was actually recently retired. He was working in off-duty traffic detail for the University of Cincinnati's commencement.
And Hinton Jr. allegedly ran him down intentionally with his vehicle.
That's the allegation. Near Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, the prosecutor, Ryan Nelson, used strong words. Calculated and premeditated, deliberately accelerated, purposely caused the death.
Hinton Jr. was in court Saturday, held with no bond. Another hearing set for Tuesday.
It's just layers of tragedy. The shooting of his son, Ryan, happened Thursday, May 1st. Police were responding to a stolen vehicle call.
Ryan was one of 4 people who fled the vehicle.
Yes. And the police chief, Teresa Thesiage, said officers saw Ryan with a gun.
There's body cam footage, but it's apparently blurry.
Described as blurry, yes. Shows him falling, then running between dumpsters. The officer involved said that when Ryan emerged, he pointed the gun at the officer.
And Ryan was shot.
Twice. Once in the chest, once through the arm and side. He died at the scene. Police say they found a semi-automatic pistol near him, full magazine, plus another magazine in his sweatshirt.
But they also said there's no evidence Ryan actually fired his weapon.
Correct. Chief Thesiage confirmed that.
And the father, Rodney Hinton Jr., he had actually seen the body cam footage.
He met with the police chief Friday morning to view it. But according to the family's attorney, Michael Wright, he was so distraught he couldn't finish watching the video.
Just unimaginable. And the reaction to the deputy's death.
Widespread sorrow and condemnation. The sheriff's office called the deputy beloved. EC's president addressed it at commencement, held a moment of silence.
Even Ryan Hinton's family, through their attorney, called the deputy's death a tremendous tragedy and offered condolences.
Ohio's Governor DeWine called it sickening. Cincinnati's police chief urged patience while both incidents are investigated. It's just an incredibly difficult situation for that community.
Absolutely awful. So when you step back, it's been quite a few days. We've seen, a new city essentially founded by a space company,
A major diplomatic disagreement over national sovereignty between the U.S. and Mexico,
a controversial AI image stirring up religious and political debate,
a fast-approaching deadline that impacts millions of air travelers.
and this deeply tragic sequence of events in Ohio involving alleged retribution after a police shooting.
Yeah, it's a lot. Seemingly disconnected events, but all happening right now, all shaping the landscape in different ways. From, the future of space and cities to international relations, digital culture, basic travel needs, and raw community grief and justice issues.
It really covers a wide spectrum. And thinking about Starbase specifically, it does leave you with a question, doesn't it? As we see potentially more of these privately governed places emerge, what does that mean for civic life, for public accountability?
That's a big question. How do you ensure the interests of the people living there and the broader public interest are protected when a private company holds so much sway?
Something to definitely keep an eye on. We encourage you, as always, to dig deeper into any of these stories that caught your interest.
Until our next deep dive.